I'm here to talk about the state of design. If any of you stayed for the first talk, you would have heard the other Fjord guys talk about what's going on, what the trends are in design. I'm going to talk a little bit about what it means for us as designers. My name's Chirryl-Lee. I work at Fjord. I overheard someone say before that they wondered what Accenture was doing here. And I'm thinking that you guys are thinking, what the hell am I doing at Accenture? And sometimes I ask myself the same question. I am a design evolution director at Fjord. What that means is that I have a fantastic role. I get to travel around the world and I get to help designers be better designers. It's pretty much my dream job, so I feel very lucky. We're part of Accenture. I've worked at Fjord for about 2 years, and I've recently moved from Melbourne, so you can tell by the accent, I'm Australian, to London. So I've been there for about 5 weeks. Very, very new. So I've just got an apartment there, and on the very first day that I moved into my apartment, I looked out my window and there was a group of tourists on a walking tour. And I live in East London, which I don't know if any of you know is kind of synonymous with Jack the Ripper. And I thought, oh my God, they're here for Jack the Ripper. My house is haunted. So I quickly jumped on Google and I Googled, and it's not actually Jack the Ripper, it was a Charles Dickens talk. So I thought, thank God. So I'm taking a little bit of inspiration for the state of design from Charles Dickens's most famous piece of work, A Christmas Carol. I'm going to be talking about the ghost of design past, present and future. So we'll kick things off with the ghost of design past. Design used to be tangible. When I first started in design, which was just over 20 years ago, design was this really tangible thing. To me, design was all about industrial design. Things like eaves, and chairs and actual tangible things, beautiful things. Or Pablo Ferro, who is one of the most well-known title designers that there's ever been. He's done a lot of Kubrick films and so on. And, he really influenced me. My background is visual, primarily visual. And then, of course, there's advertising, and I've spent a lot of time working in advertising over those 20 years. I'm a purist, I'm a pure designer. I've pretty much never worked anywhere else except in design. It's all I know. I saw this on Facebook the other day, I don't know if anybody saw it too, that 10 years ago feels like the 90s, not 2006, and that's exactly what it feels like for me. I think I'm still 17 in my head, and I still think about design in that way because that was the formative time when I was learning to be a designer, and I was not just learning to be a designer, but learning who I was as well. So that period of time for me was really instrumental in who I am today. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about my awkward design adolescence. This is a rave flyer, and you can see the date. It's the 29th of November, 1997. This is a rave flyer that I designed when I was 17. Looking at it now, I think to myself, actually, that's not that bad. It's pretty good for a 17-year-old. It's not too bad. I actually did a whole bunch of other stuff. This was one of the only ones I could find from here. This was me when I was doing this. Okay, that's me in the middle. I've obscured the other identities just because I didn't want to embarrass anybody. This is what I was doing then. We all have skeletons in our design closet. Remember this old fella? Quark Express. So this was the first version of Quark that I remember using. I may have used an earlier one, but this is burned into my retinas. That beautiful purple, it's fantastic. So Memphis right now, it's like so right now. If any of you were designing in the early 90s, this font was pretty much, something that got used everywhere. Neville Brody's Blur, it still gets used now, but to me it's absolutely foundational for me, because when I first started designing, I was actually working a lot with typography. So I was designing typefaces for, airlines like Qantas. I was designing typefaces for, huge quit smoking campaigns in Australia. So I was very, very into type. I don't know if anybody remembers these. So Cyclist discs were what we used to keep things on, generally not for very long. Absolutely fabulous cover design, I must admit. But that probably lasted longer in my memory than the stuff that I actually put onto the discs, because they were notorious for getting this thing called the click of death. And if you got the click of death in your SciQuest, that meant that everything was gone. And look at the sizes of these things, 44 meg, 88 meg. I mean, really, that's just craziness compared to now. And then I wanted to show you a little bit about my computer evolution, okay? So these are legitimately 3 of the Apple computers that I bought myself as I was going through my design career. So the first one over here, I bought one of those in 1997. You see it's got that iMac thing going on. It's got the like everything included in the monitor. The speakers never worked. It's got a zip drive. Just stands the test of time, right? Not at all. And then I had an iMac, a graphite iMac G3, which I actually won, which was pretty amazing. And then I got an iMac G4 with the arm. It's interesting to think about the evolution that's gone through and what that has meant for me. But you know, it's funny though, thinking about this system era, I kind of feel like Apple's lost a little bit of its sense of humour. They used to be quite funny, and there was little things about the Apple operating systems that were quite interesting, but that's kind of gone now. Back then, I remember being at the end of the food chain. As a designer, we never got a seat at the table. We were just churn and burn down the end. Someone else made the decisions. We never got to have a say in what was actually getting done and why it was getting done. We were just told to do it and make it look beautiful. And then the internet kind of came along and started to change things. From my perspective, when the internet really started to hit, and I mean, I was sort of doing digital stuff from fairly early on, even around 95, 96, because my dad was a computer programmer, so it was sort of something that I just fell into. There was a huge change sweeping across design when this came in, and you know, there was a scramble to try to figure out what could be done with it and how it could be leveraged for clients. And one day, around 2002, I looked up in my advertising agency. I was working at Y&R at the time, and I thought, holy shit, there's so many great designers that are just coming into the industry. I'm going to be found out. People are going to know that I'm a fraud. I'm not that good at this. All these guys are awesome. They're amazing illustrators. They can do web design. They can do all this stuff. I can't do any of that stuff. I'm just kind of, I just, do what I need to do to get by. Suddenly, everybody was becoming a designer, or so it seemed. And I think when I say everybody became a designer, it was really fundamental disciplines. Visual designers, illustrators, maybe some web design, and certainly a little bit of industrial and architecture, but they were relatively separate. All the disciplines were kept kind of separate. All right, so let's fast forward a little bit and we'll start to think about what's going on now. Right now, design is so different to what it was like then. And as we sort of just saw, so many things have happened to contribute to that evolution. Digital is probably the key to that. Because we went from something tangible to something almost intangible, something digital. Focus shifted away from print and advertising and even TV. The need for so much more digital than anything else. And I think that's really obvious in the industry today, because there's so many more people that are skilling up with digital in terms of the traditional design disciplines. A good way to express this is that, if we think about the transportation industry and what it's become and what it used to be, once upon a time it was about, originally it was probably horse-drawn carts and then designing taxis that were meant for transporting people from A to B, vehicles that were actually built for that purpose, that had, certain seats and vinyl covers so that people vomit, it's all fine. But that has now evolved substantially, and when we're thinking about what transportation means, it doesn't necessarily mean the physical vehicle anymore. It's something else. It's moving to more about the A to B part. Designers are really doing it all. In order to not just survive but thrive, it's really a requirement that designers become more multi-skilled. Thinking from my own perspective, as I said, originally I went to film school and then fell into an internship as a visual designer in advertising. I worked in advertising for a long time, did a lot of digital, and over this time I kept seeing that I needed to evolve. I studied marketing, I studied psychology, I did advertising at uni, and sort of started to move into what I would call more experiential and spatial. And then I went back to uni and I did architecture and industrial design. I have turned myself into a multidisciplinary designer, even though I still believe my core fundamental skill is visual. I do many things. This is something that I'm seeing over and over and over. You'll have a visual designer who's also studied psychology, or you'll have an engineer who also has done film, and you have these mixing of fundamentals happening. And there's all these new kinds of design. There's so many new kinds of design that I can't keep track. UX has certainly been the catalyst for so many new types of design. Recently at South by Southwest, a visual designer named John Mader, he talked about 3 types of design right now. Classical design, which is really about the craft and those fundamental core design skills. Business design, which is really about making sure that whatever we're doing as designers is going to meet the business needs and vice versa. And then the final type of design that he talked about was technology design. So how do we then make those things real? How do we bring those into reality? This is definitely a hot topic at the moment. Clients are getting savvy. This is a reflection of the whole world, really, because I think in general people are becoming more savvy when it comes to technology. Clients know more about technology, they know more about their customers, they know more about where they want to go. They're expecting more from us. And in actual fact, what they really want to do is they want to be like us. They want to be like designers too. They want to have our culture. They want to be able to create the things that we do. The demand right now for internal design capacities within clients is huge. Trying to get designers or find designers, we're a little bit elusive. Trying to get them or find them is quite hard, and that's often why they come to people like us at Accenture. Another thing that's probably one of our biggest downfalls right now as designers is that we're a little bit stuck in the present. We want to go forward, we want to do things quickly and iteratively, we want to get to the future as fast as we can, but we're limited by many things around us. We talk about data and design. Data and design is something that is limiting us because right now we don't know what to do with the data. There's data for design and there's design for data. In terms of limitations, until we understand how to control that more, how to use that information to better meet the needs of people, it's going to limit us. Speed is another thing that's really limiting us because the demands of technology, of our clients, as designers, we find it difficult to keep up with that pace. We're trying as hard as we can to go as fast as we can, but we're losing something in the mix. We lose craft. We lose quality because we're trying to go as fast as we can. Trying to keep up with that is quite difficult. And it's interesting because I've really been experimenting with, and as you saw, I've got a real attachment to some of the things that I was using when I was younger. I still get on the tools on my computer quite a bit, but what I've actually been trying to do is move away from those, and I'm trying new things. So I'm looking at how I can use iPad Pro to do almost all my work, trying different tools to see if I can actually move away and find new ways to break through and defy the speed barrier. Because speed for designers can be really, really limiting. Change is hard. Having to do something new is always really difficult. Humans don't generally like to change. Interestingly enough, talking about Quark Express, so when we went from Quark to InDesign, and I think it would have been about 2004 we made the switch, generally across the board. I was so stuck on Quark Express that I took the quick keys from Quark and I applied them to InDesign, and I used them for 3 years. And then one day I realized that I was trying to use someone else's computer. I couldn't understand why the quick keys wouldn't work. And then I realized, oh my God, I did this to myself. And then I had to basically relearn everything that I didn't learn. And I did that to myself. So, that's an example of how hard it can be for designers to let go. One of the most important things that designers need to do is being comfortable with being uncomfortable. You have to get used to the fact that things are going to change. You have to be able to kill your babies. You really have to be able to let go of your ideas and not worry about it. And I'll tell you a little secret. The thing about letting go of your ideas is that you guys are designers. You've got a million more in your kit bag. Don't worry about letting one go, because you can come up with so many more. And I guess that's the real secret. The ghost of design future. This is super exciting. If I'd known, I couldn't have even imagined 20 years ago that this is what I would be doing. Now is a really exciting time to be a designer. We've got more tools than ever before to empower us to be the best possible designers that we can be. We have more opportunities to do amazing design than ever before. The thing about change, and change is hard, but evolution happens when no one is watching. And this is just one example of one type of device that we use as designers. But think about how quickly that happened. So it goes from 1998 to today. So literally 20 years that's happened. And it's quite hard to believe. And it's hard to believe that we didn't really even notice that it happened, but it happened. Hindsight is a glorious thing. We can learn so much by reflecting on what we've done in the past. If we think about this lovely device, the Newton, and just how much Apple learnt from this huge, enormous failure. We probably wouldn't have iPhones. A lot of us probably wouldn't be doing what we're doing today if it wasn't for this device. It's hugely important to be able to be okay with failure. Having the confidence to fail. Don't worry about it. And just do it fast, because the faster that you can fail, the easier it is to get on to the next thing. I often ask myself what design means. What does it mean? We've got what it used to mean, what it means now, what it's going to mean in the future. There's so many different ways that you can pull apart what design is. We've talked about it being tangible. We've talked about it being digital. We've talked about it being intangible. It's also incredibly deliberate. It has to have a meaning and reason for being. But inevitably, design equals change. It's constant change. It's all about making things better all the time. And it's funny because when I was younger, I really thought there was something wrong with me because I looked at the world that way. I think I must have been the most annoying child. I'd always be picking at things. Why can't this be like this? Why can't this be like that? It's probably why I didn't feel very comfortable in advertising, I suppose, because that was all about getting it done right, but I was all about making it better and better and better and better. But now I've realized that I can actually use that thing that I do, this annoying thing that I do, as a real gift to be able to take that to what I do and make really positive change for people. Design as a soft skill. Imagine in the future a world where design was something that everyone had. And it wasn't necessarily something that you did. It was more like reading or writing or maths. And of course, something like this might take a complete restructure of the entire educational system, to be honest, because it's not the way that we're taught now. We're not really taught to be good at the things that we're good at. We're taught to be good at the things that we're told to be good at. But imagine that design was a soft skill and it incorporated all of the things that we consider to be soft skills now, like collaboration, curiosity, passion, fearlessness, empathy, and vulnerability. These are all the things that make us as designers. If we rolled those all into one mega ball and we had this soft skill called design, and everybody had it, it'd be a pretty amazing place. It'd be a place where everyone designs. People have been designing things for a long time. DIY is huge. Everybody wants to design their own house, right? When I say everyone designs, everybody's been designing for a long time, but It's only really now that everybody really has access to tools that allow them to design. I'm sure most of you had a MySpace profile. Here's Kim Kardashian's MySpace page from quite a few years ago. This is an interesting example of where digital gave us the chance to be a designer a little bit. And it always blows my mind whenever I look at some of the ways that people curate their Instagrams. One, I don't know how they have the damn time to make their Instagram look like that. But I think to myself, my God, I wish I was that talented at styling things. I try, but it's not necessarily that good. So there's components of this soft skill that everybody already has. It's really that it's only now that we're recognizing that we can actually intentionally use these skills to do something that's going to make our lives better. Inevitably, what this will mean is that humans are going to shape design. At Fjord, we do a lot of work around co-design. So we actually go and work with the people who will be using the thing that we're making, because they are the best people to talk to about what they need. They might not be able to articulate it. They might not be able to make it themselves. But with our help, they can be part of the process of creating the thing that they need. Humans becoming part of that, everybody becoming part of that process is super, super important. And what does that mean for us? That means that designers are going to become leaders and teachers. We have a huge responsibility. We are the keepers of these skills already. We need to pass those on to everybody else. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think that this means that there's not going to be designers, that there's, or that everybody's going to suddenly take our jobs or any of those things. Everybody can contribute to design in some way, but we're going to be the ones that are really pushing it forward and driving and shaping it. I don't know if anybody knows who this is. I'm a bit of an X-Men nerd. So this is Franklin Richards, and he's one of the Omega mutants from the Marvel universe. He was the son of Storm, another mutant. And so when you combine the powers of mutants, you get like the big, all-powerful, most powerful in the universe mutants. Design is a bit like that, right? So it's a bit like driving. Pretty much everyone can learn to drive, but not everybody's going to be Michael Schumacher, right? Everybody has a chance to be part of it. It doesn't mean that everybody's going to be doing all of it. It's our job to make sure that we shape it in the direction that we want to go. Because designers are shaping the future. That's really what we're doing. I feel very privileged to be part of this. I've gotten to work on projects that are literally going to affect every single person in Australia. Like, that's pretty wild. Working on government, whilst it sounds boring to a lot of designers, it's like, government, that's how I thought about it at first. But I decided that I was going to make an opportunity out of it. And I started thinking about it in a different way. So I started thinking about it from the perspective of, okay, what does this actually mean? This actually means that I'm going to affect 20 million plus people. That's pretty wild, right? And that is the power of design. And if we're in that position, we really have the chance to shape the future. Make time to make shit. One of the hardest things is that we're expected to do this super fast all the time. The demands are high. It's just increasingly fast. We as designers have to take the time to go back to our craft, invest in the craft, make time to do it, push back. If you've got managers who are telling you, no, it needs to be done now, push back, because you need to take the time to invest in yourself, because you don't want to lose who you are. The thing that makes you unique as a designer is the way that you think. I want you to go away from this and have a think about what you want the future to be, because that's the position that you're in. You're in the position to shape what the future is going to be like. And so, in conclusion, the state of design is a state of mind.